I made a video on human rights and human rights law. It was nearly an hour or so. I was advised to cut it to something less than half an hour so that people could very quickly have an understanding of what this subject of human rights and human rights law is all about. I've been scanning the internet and many other places to really understand if anyone has given a crisp definition of human rights. But I found that no one has very conclusively, not conclusively, very precisely tried to put in a nutshell what is human rights and what is human rights law. Now, before we go any further, we should understand what is a law and why we need a law. All through history, we have always had laws and norms around which societies worked. But what is the law? Law is a set of qualified norms or norms or rules which are binding on the people who come within that legal regime. I think I'll switch off the fan, it's creating noise. Yeah, very quickly, very quickly. Sorry for the interruption. Now, I did not define to you what is a law. Law is a set of norms that are qualified. Qualified means it tells at length what is a given law and under what conditions that law should be applied and what are the various facets of that law so that when somebody reads the law, he understands if someone has really committed an offense or not. Maybe you could look at law that way. The constitution of a country is definitely a law around which the country works. The basic law around which the country works and the constitution is a well documented, expanded, qualified, and explained set of legal framework. Having said so much, there are various kinds of laws. In India, we follow the English common law, which was given to us by the English. We have got a continental legal system and which is practiced in Europe and many other kinds of legal systems, few other kinds of legal systems. It's very difficult to define human rights in just a line or so because it touches various facets. Before I go any further, let me tell you what are the principles of natural justice. If you ask me what is the principle of natural justice, it starts with the definition of the most fundamental principle of the old Latin phrases that the Greek coined, which form the bedrock or the pillars on which legal system stands. Violation of human rights starts from those definitions, if you want to say, about law. It says you're innocent until you're proved guilty. I think in Latin somewhere it translates to bonus donic probator malus. Along with that comes principles of natural justice or the alteram partem. Listen to the other party. No one can be a judge in his own case. Second principle of natural justice. And a person cannot be punished twice for the same offense. But what's more interesting to me is that ignorance of the law. Yes, yes, one more step. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Ignorantium juria nostrum excusa. Now, these are all some of the fundamental tenets on which the legal system evolved. And, and I can see human rights in that. See, we are definitely coming to define very crisply what is human rights, what is human rights violation, at least in 4 5 points, so that after you finish seeing this video, you can very precisely understand what human rights and human rights violation would encompass. Now, for me, a fundamental violation of human right is in these three first statements what the Greeks made. You are innocent until you are proved guilty. You cannot be punished twice for the same crime. No one can be a judge in his own case. That means there's a third party. If you ask me today, the most important fundamental human right that we drawn from these words is that right to fair trial. Now, having said these points, let us come very quickly to what human rights are and what would its human right violations entail. All I spoke so far was just a kind of generic elaboration of where we came through, but today I've got a field of study of human rights which very precisely and in a nutshell describes human rights and its violations. We have come to such a state because of various questions answered and various cases that we had, the deliberations that we had. Someone was telling that if a child commits theft of food, long back the child was punished. Today, not giving the child a food, it's a right of a child up to an age that he be fed. See, that's the difference in thinking that we have, and the maturity that we have evolved into in the study of human rights. Child rights forms a part of human rights. Now, I have got two definitions or two what we call two facets of human rights and human rights and human rights law. Point number one, human rights basically concerns with the honor of an individual as a human. I've got animal rights. Let's not come to that. But we're only talking about humans. Honor of an individual. That means at no point in time you have to do. Some kind of unhonorable thing can ever be done against a human. When I say human, it involves man, woman, child, and even an infant. Point two. Oh no, let me repeat that very clearly. That might be the point that no unhonorable thing can be done. As a part of being a human and to protect human honor, a human being needs certain basic things which must be by and large provided by the state. Or the state must create conditions where people can have them so that they can lead a honorable existence. Some of the articles of the Constitution very clearly and precisely elaborate on these matters in fine detail. Point number one, I said human rights refers to the honor of human beings Point number two, as a human being, you've got fundamental rights to certain basic inputs, maybe from the state or maybe from around you, to protect your honor. Point number three says, the third aspect of it is violation of human rights by the state, actors of the state or any private party. No actors of the state or any private party can dehumanize or not honor or belittle a human being. And if it is so done, it is some kind of punishable offense. These are the three aspects of human rights in itself. Very quickly, I will sum up. Very quickly, I will sum up some of the points. As a human being, what are the basic needs of the human being are very clear. Should be very clearly spelled out. I have got an factor called a right of self-determination. It's the most important aspect of modern day aspect of human rights. A person must be given the liberties to live the way he wants to live, by and large, if it does not infringe upon the liberties of others. Right to self-determination. You do not have the right, anyone does not have the right to force on him decisions. Now, as a human being, what are the basic needs that revolve around human being? Right to food, shelter, water, right to security, a home, prevent his property and his assets must be protected by the state. He must also take reasonable care. He must have the liberty to practice things that increase a person's prestige. He must have, that means he must have a right to get educated. Government must give some avenues where he can exploit and educate himself, which provides him esteem. No one can prevent a man from getting educated. It is a violation of somebody's right. One more human right is human beings can make affiliations and friendships and constructive associations. No one can debar from doing that. I've got unions in factories because it's a legitimate organ which protects the honor of the employee. It should be supposed to be. And above all these comes the right to pursue intellectual pursuits, which ennoble and make me a better person. It also means that I can practice any religion of my choice to actualize myself. Right to self-determination. Somewhere I think I have told some 5, 6 basic rights. This is what human rights are all about. At a basic level. I have seen so many places no one has said very distinctly, not dishonoring, doing anything that could dishonor an individual is violation, is what human rights is basically all about. Now, how can the state infringe upon somebody's human rights? State or any private actor cannot do activity that threaten an individual. State must be careful not to infringe upon the privacy of people. Illegal confinement, torture, forced disappearance, not giving access to kith and kin, as the case might be, creating physical injury deliberately by a state party or some external party. If I've got an unsafe road, it's a violation of human right. The road must be made safe because it is a security issue of the people. With the security, providing security or safety is also a fundamental human right. Now, These are some of the factors around which human rights evolve, and I have got laws which try to prevent the abuse of this through constitutional means and even through other laws and legislation passed by the state government, the central government of various countries, and also by the United Nations Council of Social and Economic United Nations Social and Economic Council. Well, that's all about human rights. We'll meet again later.